Yali Madat, Assalamu alaikum, bienvenue, welcome to Summer Reflections. I'm Zuleika Nathu. I hope that you've been enjoying your summer so far. It certainly feels different here in Atlanta in many ways compared to last year. As you may know, Friday Night Reflections is on hiatus for the summer, and so in its place we bring to you some of our best programming, insightful interviews from the recent past, and even some pieces that you haven't seen before. Tonight, we present to you Resonance of the Soul, a conversation between two musicians about creation and inspiration, Zaheed Damani and Hafeez Jamal. Hafeez is a multi-instrumentalist, singer, producer, and environmentalist in Toronto. His music is heavily influenced by R&B, reggae, as well as his East African Indian heritage. He goes by the stage name Kyani, and many of you at home will know that that's a Swahili invitation to come sit and be in harmony with ourselves, with each other, and with the earth. Zahid is a musician and a physician. He has an eclectic musical style that includes Bollywood as well as devotional music. He's been part of several bands, including the Chaiwalas, and was the creator of the song I Am Mawlana, to celebrate Mawlana Hazar Imam's Diamond Jubilee visit to Canada. Hafeez and Zahid will share their musical journeys, talk about their inspiration, and what it was like to perform in front of Mawlana Hazar Imam. We hope you enjoy the program.
Hey Hafeez, how are you?
I'm good, man. It's nice to finally connect. It's been a minute.
It has. It's been a couple of years actually, but we've always had a chance to stay in touch. So this is especially nice.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that connection. This is also a really great opportunity for us just to explore some commonalities and even some differences in our artistic styles and our approaches. Although my inkling is that we probably have more commonalities than differences.
Yes, that's right. And my journey in a very large way began with you and your music and your approach. And so I suspect we'll find some really interesting connections along the way.
Cool. So, I mean, we could get right into it. Why don't we just do a quick intro? Do you want to start?
Yeah. So what shall I say? What would you like to know?
Okay. I would like to know about Zahid the artist, and I would like to know what Zahid the artist understands about Zahid the artist.
That's a forever question, I think. But what I can offer is that I started off formally in Western classical music, with Western choral music in particular, when I was in high school at Western Canada High School in Calgary. I joined the chamber choir there, and I sang tenor. As we got closer to the Golden Jubilee at the time, there were a few artists in Calgary. There was a group of us from that initial cohort that were very fortunate to then get selected to the Golden Jubilee edition, I guess if I can call it, of the Canadian Ismaili Muslim Youth Choir. And I would say that's sort of where my journey as an artist really took hold. I had a chance to meet our brothers and sisters from around the country, and there were some really incredible musicians, all of them, that I was getting a chance to know and learn from and to sing with on this group, that encouraged my interest in R&B and jazz and hip hop and sorts of diverse influences that you'll hear now in my music. And they're really the ones that pushed me to kind of step into my own and to kind of tap into this idea of Zahid the artist. And from there, I started to improvise a lot more. I felt more comfortable kind of exploring. And this idea of exploration started when I was a child, and I would sit at the dining table for breakfast or lunch or dinner, and I would always hum along as all of my family would be eating their meal, and they'd kind of look over at me, and it would be kind of annoying, and they'd ask me to stop sometimes, or they'd let it go and let it happen. And today we call this process composition. That's what I was doing at the time. And from there, with the choir, I started to explore songwriting and composition and arrangement and things like that. And that led me to co-found a group in Calgary, a hip-hop trio that we called the Chaiwalas. And we started experimenting with so many of the influences that were a part of who we were. So Gyanans and hip-hop and Bollywood and all sorts of traditions started to come together, Indian classical music, and through the things that we released. And so the first track that we did was called Sahib Jitu. It was a hip-hop tribute or reinterpretation of the Gyanan. And that's really when I started to appreciate the impact that kind of authenticity or that kind of exploration or dialogue even musically can have on listeners. There was a lot of members of our Jamaat, young and old, who were really intrigued by it. There were elements of that were really resonating with them, that really caused them to introspect and to want to know more about who they were, or that really got them wanting to learn more about our traditions and who we were. And that's exactly what I was engaging in. These were all media, avenues for me to explore who I was and who I wanted to be. But again, the common thread here has always been expression and search. And that's something that I've really drawn inspiration from, especially when it comes to your music, Hafeez, because of the way that you did so much of the same stuff, especially at the time of the Golden Jubilee. I was introduced to your music through a friend of mine who was a part of the choir at the time and said, you have to hear what Hafeez is doing. And it's just him, it's just his voice, it's just his guitar. And when I heard it, I couldn't move. I was truly, truly in awe, because I was hearing so much of what I was feeling reflected back. And it gave me permission, and it showed me that devotional music can absolutely happen in English, in a contemporary form, in a contemporary sound, and with our own language and with our own influences. And it was stunning. And I started to hear some of that African influence at the time. You've brilliantly, been working in reggae, for example, and introducing all kinds of other influences. We worked together while I was in the UK, on that project called Songs for Peace. Late Night Conversations very generously allowed that song to be a part of that project. And so Songs for Peace was a 3-album collection. We ended up having 42 artists, 39 songs. We raised $40,000 for the World Partnership Walk. And so again, with your support, I was able to start to understand the power of music, to help us advocate and learn and to move for a cause. And so I think all of these have been factors that have helped me understand who I am, who I can be, who I'd like to be, and the role and the power of music through all of this. And of course, inflection points along the journey have been the Aga Khan, Award for Music, Jubilee Arts, where the Imam himself has really powerfully emphasized the role of music, but also the power of devotional music in particular. And that's a message that I carry with me through what Salim and Suleiman shared with us. I was fortunate to be a part of Jubilee Mubarak with them and to perform with them when they came into Toronto in 2014, also with other members of our choir from the Canadian Smiling Muslim Youth Choir, where he shared with us a message that the Imam had shared with them at an institutional dinner and other places where they have met him. And he has emphasized the beauty and the power of devotional music and the fact that that's a tradition that should continue. And we've heard him, through his guidance to us, talk about the need for contemporary reinterpretation and contemporary forms to allow these art forms to continue. And so that's why I've been so excited to follow your journey, because it pushes me, further into my own. And I hope it's something that we can continue to share with our brothers and sisters around the world in the years to come.
Yeah, you and I have shared some serious resonance over the years. I remember when you were working on that project in the UK, and you had asked us to put a song together. And actually, at that time, Late Night Conversations was pretty young, and Azine hadn't joined yet. Azine is the singer of Late Night Conversations, who eventually became my wife. And so I remember us meeting in the UK and having resonance like over the pond first of all, and then in person, which was pretty cool. And that's we've been enjoying that ever since. And I think that you and I share this love for this particular form of expression. To me, music has always been a resonance and an expression of the soul and of the emotional dimensions and spiritual dimensions of the human being. and the human experience. But I was fortunate. I was raised in a family with a long tradition of Ginan singing and Ginan research. My Nana Bapa and my Nanima were actually really well-known reciters of Ginan back home in Tanzania, but then also here at Dundas West Jamatkana. And they taught my mom, and my mom from when I was really small. I had the good fortune of learning under her tutelage, and she's incredible as a Ginan singer. She the way that she imbues meaning in everything, in every way that she creates space between words, and the way she pronounces, and she kind of drilled that into me from when I was very young, to be very intentional with the way that I recite. And then as I was born in Tanzania, and we lived in Malawi, in Zambia. We were in Zimbabwe for a short stint. We were in Yemen for 5 years. We were in France, and then in England, and then Canada. And when I moved here, it was with the Caribbean community that I found real resonance. And so R&B and hip hop and R&B, hip hop, and especially reggae were big for me. I have always been dabbling in music, but it was until I found the guitar, which was kind of by accident. I was hanging with a friend out in Lakehead University near Thunder Bay. I was stationed out there for a few months, and she was throwing out this old guitar, and it was a really bad guitar. So it was in the garbage, and I literally picked it out of the garbage, and I was like, the strings were like this high off the fretboard, so you had to really. So I was like, no, don't throw it out. I got nothing to do here up in the snow. I'm gonna restring it. So I restrung the guitar, and between work shifts and stuff, I was teaching myself to play guitar, and it was exactly what I needed: a completely different approach to music, because I used to play piano and drums before that, and obviously singing, but. Piano is very laid out for you, right? Where all the notes are, where all the black keys are, so all those are your sharps and your flats. But the fretboard is like the universe. It's like, you can get by. It doesn't take long for you to get by, but to really understand it takes a lifetime. There's so many relationships across notes, across chords, and it changed everything for me about music. And around that time was Golden Jubilee. And I was doing my master's research in environmental studies in Zanzibar on the beach. While I was, I'm a scuba diver and a coral reef scientist as well. And so I was working out there, and on the off shift. So we'd come back from a dive, and I'd pick up a guitar and I'd play on the beach. And I remember sitting there saying, you know what, Hazar Imam? I'm going to write you an entire album for this year. And I'm going to dedicate this album to you. So I started writing on the beach in Zanzibar, and a lot of those songs come from there. And actually, beach music is kind of the running theme for my music, right, across the board. So that's The Gardener in His Garden, which you had heard at that time. And then shortly after that, I had the opportunity to meet Hazar Imam at Zanzibar Airport. And then in 2018, we got this phenomenal opportunity to perform for him. So we took what was known as the Greek chorus. We'd turned that into the street chorus, and there were 3 other people and myself, and we created the lyrics in spoken word to narrate the entire story of Nasir Khosraw as he was looking for the Imam of the time. And Hazar Imam was, I remember seeing his face, and I haven't seen him that. First of all, he looked surprised, which is, you take that as you will, right? But he was really surprised that we were rapping. And he was so happy. And we got to say what we needed to say. Like, we got to say to him what we wanted to say. And afterwards, he said, I'm just so grateful. He said, I'm so impressed or happy that you are taking our history and bringing it out in a contemporary way. I'm paraphrasing. And he said the lyrics were especially inspiring, and he touched his chest when he said that, and those were our lyrics. They were not edited in any way. And so he elevated the value of arts for the community. Anyway, right after that, I had the good fortune of meeting my bandmates, and we created Late Night Conversations. The music was meditative. We would find a chord structure that resonated for us, and we would play that chord structure into 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning kind of times. And a song would emerge from that meditation, from that musical meditation, from that literally that resonance across. So we had a keyboardist, a singer, and myself on keys, and we had a drummer and a bass player who would switch out occasionally here and there. And then as time went on, we were on tour in Costa Rica in 2017, and we played a whole bunch of gigs in Toronto, like every venue. It was such a blast. 2018 rolled around and things shifted a little bit. And so I said, I'm always devotional in my music. That's not going to change. But I want to create reggae R&B with a really distinct influence from my East African and Indian heritage. So you will find sitar or vina or Swahili and tabla and congos and djembes in my music, but it's primarily reggae with R&B melodies. And so that's where Kyani came from. Kyani is my artist name, and Kyani is a Swahili name, which is an invitation to come and sit and be at peace with yourself and with others and with earth. And so it's kind of a beautiful nexus, a beautiful merging of all of my values as a spiritualist, as an environmentalist, and as a musician.
There are a few inflection points that I was able to kind of pick up on in what you were saying there, because a lot of the journey that you've shared is also in parallel with, I think, the journey of many devotional artists, but also devotional music in Canada as well. Hazar Imam mentioned at the end of that performance at the institutional dinner that one of the things he was really proud of is the artists that he saw in the Jamaat. And he made a sociological reference when he said that, when something along the lines of, when you see artists in a community, that's when you know that society or that community has advanced. Something like that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I was thinking on this a while, actually, like, why is art important for any community and why specifically for the Ismaili community, right? But if you look back in your history, what do we know from our history? We know our artists, right? We know our peers with their ginans, and we know Nasir Khosraw and his qasidas. And by extension, we know Rumi and Hafeez. And so it's the art that echoes through the ages and informs us of our approach and our philosophy and our identity. So the fact is we're Ismaili, right? So like being Ismaili means that the essence stays the same, but the form changes.
And the Imam has encouraged that over time as well, because he has guided that process. He has emphasized the need to continue reinterpreting, and that's so much of what has inspired the Aghan Music Initiative, the preservation of so many beautifully intricate traditions from Central Asia, for example, that we have come to now appreciate through documentaries and through concerts and things like that. And the other thing that comes to mind here is this idea of community, and not only the notion of one Jamaat, for example, which has been so prevalent and so important, especially in the last 10 plus years, as the Jamaat has continued to globalize and has continued to come into contact with one another. But it's also this idea of a community among artists. Things like Jubilee Arts, for example, have brought us into contact with so many artists from around the world. And that, it has really forced us to get to know one another, not only as people, as musicians, but also as brothers and sisters. One of the things that I've been really fortunate to be a part of is what we might refer to as a Dandiya Ras band, for example. In March of 2014, I was, generously and very kindly asked to be a part of a group here in Calgary, and that group has since then grown tremendously. We have embraced one another. Everyone's style has been different, but it really taught me how to be in front of an audience, and a really special opportunity to have an audience with the Imam, for example. For me was December 2016 for Hazar Imam's birthday. And I was very fortunate to be a part of an ensemble of around 20 artists from around the world. And we had been asked to come together to put together a presentation or an offering for the Imam. And it wasn't guaranteed that it was going to happen. And as we started to think about it, what could you possibly do in a performance? What could you possibly say? I suspect that, you may have had a similar challenge. When you talked about the street chorus, for example, at the institutional dinner. And so having so many musicians from so many countries, and where more than half of the performers didn't speak English, it was going to be a real challenge. Stylistically, we all had influences musically, poetically, culturally, linguistically, that we had brought with us. And what we wanted to do is put together an offering that showed the Imam that we are grateful for all that he has given us, all that he has taught us. And pluralism was central among those gifts. And we knew that we wouldn't be able to get up there and perform something that kind of embodied pluralism until we had experienced it first. And so we had a very strong and deliberate exercise in pluralism. And as we got to listen more than sing, more than playing, as we began to appreciate what everyone brought forward to us, it actually became the perfect offering or gift. And I mention that because so much of ginans and qasidas and performances, our offerings are a form of nazrana, for example. You sitting on the beach, offering to write an album for the Imam is very much in the same vein. And when you do so, what should it be about? What is devotional music in an Ismaili musical context, for example? What is devotional music versus non-devotional music? And I find love to be the common thread there. And one of the things that we were able to appreciate is that when you have a parent and you want to give them a gift, you can buy something for them, you can make something for them, or in this case, we can participate in developing something that shows them that we have learned from their example, and that we continue to incorporate this into our life. And it was a very moving experience for us, as collaborative music making often is. What are your thoughts on this idea of devotional music versus non-devotional music? And then what does that mean specifically when we bring it into an Ismaili context? Why is it an important thing for us to engage in?
50 years ago, we didn't have artists in our community, and now we do. And so, of course we didn't. We had, our parents moved here in chaos, and they had to build from the ground up. They weren't thinking about art. Art is a sign that, or the fact that we have artists in our community is a sign that our community is well established, is comfortable, and has been able to rise above and start looking at some self-actualization in the community. And that is my answer to your why devotional music. Why do we write music at all? Zahid, I mean, for me, I hear music in my soul. I try very hard with the equipment I have behind me and the equipment I have in front of me that you can't see to bring to life to your ears what I'm hearing right here on the inside. And everything I hear on the inside is Khuda. Everything I hear on the inside is Mawla. I don't ever say it. I don't say it's Shakreem, except for on the new song on Saltwater Dreams, which has just come out. I use Hazar Imam's name. And that was kind of a parallel to the fact that my Rasta friends say Ja Rastafari all the time. So I was like, well, in the name of Kareem, commander of the faithful, he is where my hope takes root. And so that, if I am devotion, if everything about me is devotion, then of course the music that I create is going to be devotional. Why do we create music or any expression? It's you need to, I don't know, for me it's like breathing. I can't exist. I don't have a rudder. I don't have any direction if I'm not making music or working in something musical.
You talked about acknowledging this idea of being a part of something important, being a part of something really special, and really pausing for a moment to really ask ourselves who we are, where we've come from, and how it is that we continue to be here. And that's very much through the Imam's grace and mercy. And that's what motivates me today too. And through that acknowledgement, I think that there is something powerful that we unlock. But again, Hafeez, when I was sitting in my undergraduate residence building, listening to you sing, Ya Ali, Ali Mawla, Ya Rabbana. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember that track.
Of course you remember it. Of course you remember it. But I was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, this is who I am. Why is this making me feel the way that it is? And it was an internal push. So just like you talk about your essence and your being music, I think that's what that was unlocking for me. There's this quotation that says, when you allow your light to shine, you are unconsciously giving other people permission to do the same. And that's when I really started to understand, at the time of the Golden Jubilee, the Diamond Jubilee, we have had incredible forerunners before us. The people who have been, the torchbearers of excellence in music in our community, especially as it comes to, as it relates to devotional music. There are some very large shoes that we're filling, but there's a lot of things that all of the luminaries that we're referring to, Pir Sadruddin, Nasir Khusro, Hafeez Jamal, Khurshid Nur Ali, Tawfiq Karmali, so many of the greats in the Geet tradition, for example, as we refer to them, we learn from them. There's a lot of reverence for their journey and what they've learned, and we've been able to pick up on those elements and bring them forward, and I've been able to sample some of their music, for example. But one of the key lessons that I've taken away from that is this idea of authenticity. I mentioned that earlier. That was a part of your journey very early on, when you recognized a resonance with reggae, for example, hip hop, R&B, and I've kind of done the same thing. And when it really changed is when I was challenged by a mentor of mine, Hussein Jan Muhammad, whom you know, I'm sure. And he said to me, Zahid, how can you say it without saying it? And that's when everything changed. Because now we were speaking a language, but people are able to access it from different levels. So rather than spoon feeding, which is what I might have been doing early on as an artist, as a writer, that changed. Have you also kind of experienced that as part of your process as well?
100%. What is music? What is poetry? What is film? It's all storytelling. So rather than tell you something, it's better that I show you. I learned that really early on. I was a creative writer back in high school, and one of my professors, she was like, if he's like, instead of just saying it, why don't you show me? Instead of saying that the rose was beautiful, tell me about the rose. What color is it? How is the dew sitting on it? What's in the background? What emotions does it convey? Use those words. Drip it with meaning. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I agree with you. And that's very much part of my process as well, Zahid, the same as you. I'm curious, when you write, do you start with lyrics first, or do you start with music first?
I think it's changed over time. I started off with lyrics first. Ideas would come to me. My phone is kind of the tool that I use to just kind of jot things down, and I get in trouble because there are times where in Jamaat Khana I've pulled out my phone and I've typed something out and it's been a lyric, and that's kind of where it starts. It started with a lyrical kind of concept, and that then turns into a rhyming scheme, for example. And then there have been moments where a tune will come. So I'll share with you. I shared a line earlier in our chat that came from the song called Mubarak Mola. And I was sitting in a cardiology lecture. So I was, in my just at the end of my first year of medicine, and like something started to happen. Like I had a melody that was just like, very quickly developing in my mind. And I thought, what fits with that cadence? What kind of rhyming scheme fits with that? How many syllables should I be using in the words? And as you probably have experienced, Hafeez, like that just evolved. Like within seconds, the melody had a lyric associated with it, and then it had a tempo, and it had a motion, a movement within it as well. And then later that afternoon, there was music, that I was able to find to complement it. And so I think for me, it's absolutely an inspired process, but it's more often than not both. I think more recently I've been starting with the music, so I'll play something, and as the music is playing, I'll write to it. And I think my process is a bit different than yours because I don't play an instrument necessarily. So I will seek out music from online. There are producers, that I work with personally, but there are also producers around the world who post their music, and I'm able to work with those files and to write based on what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I understand. But the process is very similar. for me, like with Saltwater Dreams, the one that's just out now, which is very directed to the relationship with Hazar Imam and the metaphor of Rumi, of a water drop going back to the ocean, and how that's a metaphor of the soul returning to its creator. The lyrics came first on a drive to work. And I literally got to work and I didn't walk in. I wrote everything down on my phone and then I went in and then I was humming it in my head. And then I got home and put the music together. But I'll be honest with you, Zahid, that's actually the opposite. This song has taken a year to create because it's the opposite of how I normally write. So what I normally do is I use Cubase and Ableton, which are behind me here. There's a keyboard back there, and there's guitars on this side with a bass guitar and a regular and some other guitars. And basically, I create a chord progression. So a chord progression, people don't know, is basically you find a key and then you find the chords that you want and how they move, and it will resonate with you in a certain way. And then I use that to create I create a drum track around that. I create a bass line around that. And that then informs me, just the same as it did for you, the cadence of the words to come, but also the soundscape will give me an emotional inspiration and say, this is what you should sing the song about. And that's more natural for me. That's the natural way to do it. So this one that I've written for you is the one that's out now, called Saltwater Dreams. That was done the opposite way. And that took a year to create because I was just not satisfied with the soundscape because it didn't fit the way what I was feeling authentically inside. And I was like, no, I want this to be hard. This song is going to be dubstep inspired. It's going to have live trumpets and live horns, and it's going to have a sick bass line. And I needed that before anything, but I already had the lyrics and I already had the melody. So it was really strange. But when you tell me about it, isn't it so cool that, like, across the country or even sometimes across the world as we have lived, our processes are the same. And I talk to a lot of artists and their processes are similar, Okay, maybe you don't write the music, but it's the music that inspires, or vice versa, it's the lyrics that go. And it's just a really cool thing. So, like, where do you draw your lyrical, and look, where do you draw your metaphorical inspiration?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it started off as wanting to just tell people things, to reinforce or to reiterate what our beliefs are. And I think over time that has sort of shifted to being more of a conversation, and oftentimes an intimate conversation between me and the subject of the song, which is often, if not always, the Imam. But what changes in the songs that I work on is the voice of the singer. Is it a child? Is it an older person? Is it me? Is it the voice of someone else? And so I like to play with that. That gives people an opportunity to really think about what is being said and where it's coming from. I draw my metaphors and I draw my imagery and thought from diverse sources. I really like pulling from Rumi. I like pulling from Hafeez. I like pulling from Sadi. I like pulling from our Ginans, from speeches, from guidance of the Imam. And then I think what I really enjoy doing is bringing it together, because for those who would like to think more about the lyric, for example, or the intention of the lyric or the story of the song, they'll start to pick up the references. And when they go back to the sources, when they go back to the references, they'll start to unlock some of the philosophy that really motivated that section of the song. And so that's very much present in a track like I Am Mawlana, for example. What some people don't know about that is that the chorus itself, I Am Mawlana, is from a Ginan, Karta Juge Dua. The melody is very different. The opening of that track, we have sampled Hafeez Jamal from 1978 with Mara Mola Canada Badarsha, and then I kind of reinterpret it as I sing. And there are references in that song, for example, to no mountain, no river, no desert, which we know the Imam said when he was in Tajikistan. And there are, references to the coming of the spring, for example, which is not only rejuvenation of the world that we live in, but also spiritually. When we talk about Navroz, what is it? When we talk about visiting of the Imam, the experience of the Dar, what is that? And so I was very much challenged to try to express what my heart was feeling, the joy at knowing that the Imam was coming, but how can I say it in a way that's very different than just jumping up and down and just being really excited that we've heard a talika that the Imam is coming. And so I think lyrically, my process has evolved. And in some of the songs that I'm working on now, there are works in progress. They're not yet released. They are a lot more contemporary in their form. And so they're very much like a mainstream pop sound might sound. And so there are less overt references, but they are very much inspired by the very same texts. They have more of a contemporary sound. There's some dance hall, there's some pop, there's some R&B that I'm working on, some gospel influences that are going to be in there. But the references continue to be very much from the same place, motivated by the same things, but very, very much intimate in terms of what I'm exploring and what I'm trying to convey, the struggles that I've been through, the triumphs that I've experienced coming out of those struggles, and very much, a very deep love that I feel for the people who are around me, my brothers and sisters in my nuclear family, but also those in the Jamaat that have buoyed me through tough times. And, that includes you, Hafeez, as well. And so there's very much a universal connection that I think I'm feeling, but that I'm also trying to convey. And that's why during COVID, for example, in the past 1 year, there have been so many projects that I've been fortunate to be a part of, either in front of the mic and camera or behind, where we've really worked or where we've really been motivated by very similar concepts, with younger artists, older artists, artists around the world who have very different ways of working and very different philosophies, but we all seem to connect on the same thing.
Yeah, I think this is the source of our resonance, is this approach from the soul, an ability to really just take from our own rich history and represent that in a way that's contemporary. And when you said, your new stuff is going to be more contemporary, and so not directly averring to any Ismaili context. That is exactly what Kyani is. The Kyani project, Kyani music is the ability to make this devotional, esoteric lyric, this mysticism, to make it immediately available for everybody. And so I draw on the same Rumi and Hafeez and the Ghanaic literature, the Qasidas, and then from the non-Ismaili and non-Eastern traditions, I have found some resonance also in particular genres that we listen to today. Obviously, conscious reggae is a big part of what I am, and conscious reggae is very much about living spiritually and intentionally in the world, and living Aital, which is living in a harmonious and clean life with Mother Nature. And then there are particular, you can find sources in a lot of different places. There's classic rock from the 70s. There is even some alternative rock and some grunge. There are some really deep songs that exist. And so I have learned a long time ago to even be pluralistic in my approach to the musical genres, and to jump across genres, because you can't judge a book by its cover. There's some people have really deep and inspiring lyrics across the entire library of music that exists today. And so learning that, I think, this is where, when we write, like when LNC was writing, for example, we would bring, like, I have a rock riff and so even a rock solo that happens in a particular R&B song, and vice versa. We'll throw that in. Or in Kyani's music, it's like there's a really heavy rock steady reggae drum beat with a really heavy bass line, but there's a vina playing in the chorus, and so there is this way of making the music say what the lyrics say, and this resonance. And when that happens, it's beautiful. And it's so cool because it's about pluralism, right? It's about the fact that Rumi was talking about the same thing that like that Chronix is talking about today.
I think a lot of the music that exists out there is pushing us in a certain direction and facilitating that journey in a unique way, which is why I think music has been such a universal language and avenue and vehicle for us for so long, and by Mullah's grace it'll continue to be, and through that we're going to meet incredible artists that push us, and that help to elevate us, and that will journey with us, towards where it is that we all aspire to reach.
Yeah, man, I agree, and I think that there's a real need for it. There's a resonance. Like when I get a call, like even when you tell me, Zahid, that like when you heard Ali Mullah and you felt a certain way about that. I mean, you're dipping into the same river that I dipped into to write the song. You're dipping into it on the other side when you listen to it, and it's the same emotional, spiritual message and feel, and so I think there's a real need for it in our community. I think there's a need for a contemporary expression of who we are as a community, but also as a historical community, but also as a very contemporary community. And Hazar Imam once said, I remember a while ago, and again I'm paraphrasing, but learning the English language doesn't detract your own language and your own culture. It does the opposite, right? If you learn English and you're a contemporary, then you have now created an opportunity for yourself to express your heritage and the value of your cultural approach on the world stage. And I feel exactly the same way about music. I feel like as a community, we are poised now to be able to come forward and say, this is who we are, and we do it in a contemporary language. And that's a really beautiful thing, and it's a needed thing. We're filling a need. But all that aside, I'm filling my own need because I can't not write. It must come out. So I mean that it's breathing for me. Music is breathing. So.
But that's also the gift. That's also the gift that you have been bestowed with, right? I mean, the best way to sharpen it and to polish it is to continue giving it away. And when we look at the channels within our community, for example, when I look at the songs that I've uploaded or have had a chance to be a part of, as I look at the general trends, there's a lot of consumption. There is a lot of interest. There's a lot of people who are tuning into this, and that pushes you and me and the brothers and sisters that we work with to produce better music videos, to produce better songs, better lyricism, better composition, because there's a need for it, and people are telling us through the numbers that they're listening and that this is important to them. And if I take a step back, I think the other message here is that there's also a desire to connect. One of the things that I remember hearing from the National ITREP team about 10 years ago, the chair visited Calgary, and he gave guidance that the Imam had given, that in the coming years, young people are going to seek to connect through the arts. And lo and behold, 10 years later, we've had Jubilee Arts, we had the Al Khan Music Awards, we've had the Jubilee Games, where music has also played a very strong role. And there is an entire new community of artists that are flourishing. And like I said, you've been at the very forefront of that. And it's certainly inspired my journey with Faiz Meghani, for example, another artist that, from the US whose music has inspired me. Salim and Suleiman have been great inspirations. And I think together we're charting a really interesting course. One where, by the way, everyone belongs. And it's an umbrella or a tent where everyone can come as they are, and they will hopefully find something that they can contribute or that they can resonate with.
It's a very interesting time. Very interesting time for the community. And the other thing that's being navigated is that it's a global community where I think we're the most global we've ever been in history. We are a community that's learning. But what I hope is, just as you said, that we just continue to improve, because music is a vast universe of things, from playing the instrument to songwriting, to arranging songs, to writing lyrics, to recording, to mixing, to mastering. There are a million things in each of those. It's kaleidoscopic. It's so massive that if you step in, you will get sucked into the current and be pulled into it. And you need to immerse, because if you immerse in it and you get out of your own way, that's when the creative process is magical. That's when you're creating authentic art. But as an expression of yourself, do your expression and get better at it and learn about the universe of music. You know, Nikola Tesla said that if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in vibration and frequency, right? The world is music. Everything about everything is music. Atoms vibrate. Light is music. Everything is music. So if you step into that world, you step into a completely different understanding. And if you are musically inclined, then you would do yourself a disservice if you didn't explore other options. Pick up an instrument or something. And as Rumi said, there are 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Each thing that we do is a prayer.
But also that which you are seeking is seeking you.
Yeah, exactly. It's all inside of you. Exactly. You dip into that current. It's the same current that you're dipping into. So where can we hear your music, Zahid?
You can find it online, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Just type in my name. I've been fortunate to do quite a few collaborations, and so if it's not under my name, it'll be under someone else's, but it should be there.
So under Zahid or Zaheed Damani?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So Zahid Music, actually. That's on Instagram and Facebook. And then on YouTube, again, my channel is called Zaheed Music. But again, you'll find my name as the full name, Zaheed Damani. So that's what I would suggest. And for yourself, is it Kyani, Hafeez Jamal, Late Night Conversations?
So for Kyani, it's my handle is at Kyani Music. Kyani is Kaeni. So it's at Kyani Music. That's IG and Facebook. And on YouTube, it's Kyani Music, and my website is www.kyanimusic.com. Late Night Conversations has an IG page and also has Spotify as I do. And so there's good music all the way across, man. And I hope you enjoy it. Whoever's listening out there right now, Zahid, man, I'm really happy we had this moment to chat. I find that resonance exists more so than dissonance. And I know the world right now is very dissonant and people are pulling away from pluralism. But we have the grace of our Imam, just the ultimate intellect. And he has always guided us to stay true. And pluralism is one of those things that has really taught me a lot of lessons. Since he mentioned it in the beginning, it applies to everything, right? It applies to the administration, the government administration in the United States and Italy and the UK, as well as applying to music and every aspect of our lives, that we are more the same than we are different. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful lesson, man.
Absolutely, and more so through music, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm really happy you're creating devotional music. I'm sure you and I will be in touch again soon. I know we're doing coffee soon. But I also, I want to know when your music's coming out. Mine, as I told you, Saltwater Dreams is out. When this airs, it'll be out already. And it's specifically around Kashali. And then I have another track coming out, inshallah, in August. And some new stuff. So stay tuned. Whoever's listening, stay tuned to Zahid's stuff. Stay tuned to Kaeni music. We love you. And yeah.